Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast.
We are gathered here today to see the joining of Odin and Cleopatra.
If you have any objections, please hold them until after the dice are cast.
Yes. Yes, indeed. This is the daughter of the 9 moons is my bloody wife. It's what's happening. The bloody daughter of the 9 moons is my wife, I think is how the quote goes. But yeah, let's do this here chapter.
Chapter 31, What the Aelfinn Said. And we've got the serpent and wheel header, which of course just means the pattern, ta'veren, all that kind of stuff, because we're Mat and it's ta'veren pushing him to get married.
This is a heavy ta'veren chapter. There's so much ta'veren. Yeah. And also some really good RJ writing. I think that he might have been most in his groove when he was writing ta'veren.
This is a pretty good chapter in terms of like language. That's one of the things I noticed. There's a couple of like turns of phrases and sayings, and like I do feel like he put a lot of, like I say, more thought, but he put deeper thought into this chapter than some of the other preceding chapters. This is clearly the apex of what he was going for with Mat in this section.
A non-sloggy part of the slog. This is where the slog drops away and you are back in the absolute action that you came here for.
Mm-hmm. The Seanchan noblewoman expressed surprise and no little irritation when Mat accompanied her toward the kennels. Sita and Rena knew the way, of course, and he was supposed to be getting his cloak and whatever else he meant to carry. The 2 Soldam followed them through the poorly lit halls, cloaks hanging down their backs and eyes on the floor. Doman brought up the rear, as though shepherding the pair. The braid hanging down the side of his head swayed as his eyes darted down every crossing corridor, and sometimes he felt at his waist, as though expecting to find a sword or a cudgel. Except for them, the tapestry-lined hallways were silent and still. I have a small errand up there, Mat told Aeginin, as casually as he knew how, and smiled for her. No need to bother yourself. Won't take a minute. His very best smile seemed to make no more impression than it had yesterday in her room at the inn. If you wreck me now, she growled in a threatening tone. Just remember who planned this, he muttered, and she grunted. Light. Women always seem to think they could just step in and take over and do a better job than the man whose job it was. I mean, it pretty much picks up right where the last chapter leaves off, right?
Yep. Just right that moment in the scene.
Sita and Rena are basically on their way to go get the Soldam. They are the Soldam to get the Damane.
Yeah, this is when Aeginin and Mat are joining up and then going to retrieve the Eyes to Die that they're absconding with.
And so he's got a small errand up there, which we sort of foreshadowed in the last one where he said he had decided to risk a change or two himself. The small errand is the change, which is letting the sea folk windfinders free so they can rebel.
Letting one woman free so that she can let a bunch of other people free, so that they can let so many more people free that a giant grand escape can ultimately happen. It's very, very cool.
That's a good distraction.
It's a good distraction and
it's a good thing to do.
Yeah, a good thing to do.
Right,
very
it's
much.
a good deed. Yeah. So this is one of the reasons we like Mat, is like he figures out ways to both be helpful and clever and help himself. Right? He's like, this is in the guise of helping himself. Like, I need a distraction to help me escape. When really it's like he feels terrible about seeing the sea folk imprisoned and wants to give them a chance to get away.
Right. His I'm not a hero narrative means that there has to be a selfish angle. But the fact that he is fundamentally a hero means that he was going to find an excuse to cloak the need to do this in.
Right.
He was going to do it. He just needed to find a way to make it seem selfish.
And I love this saying, well, if wishes were horses, beggars would ride, you know. If wishes were fishes, we'd all walk on water. I love those little sayings.
They're fun. There's so many ways to run them and do world building at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Mat and Aeginin butting heads in the middle of a time-sensitive operation is just, mwah, it's delightful.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and he's like, she walks like a man. He's very anti-Aegenan.
Oh my God. The part where he's like, if she wasn't wearing a dress, you wouldn't know she's not a man. I'm just like, Matt, I will smack you myself. After all the critiquing I've had of people who smack you, I will smack you myself. But it's funny. They're both really stressed out and in a high tension situation. And this is the kind of bickering that happens in this. And they're well matched. They're fine.
Meanwhile, Matt's trying to play general, right? And Aegenon's like, oh, idiot.
Right, exactly. There's general and ship captain, and like, they don't have a lot of room in each other's plans for that, unfortunately, for them. But it works out fine. In the end, somehow, they managed to baton pass pretty well.
Oh, I was just saying he goes and rescues Nesta, right?
Nestel din Sakura South Star.
And I was just looking up to see she doesn't have any other references in the story other than this chapter. So it's not like she's just a
random
token sea folk, a random sea folk who's being let free. So I was trying to figure out if this maybe she like hung out with Egwene, or maybe she, appears later in some sort of event in the last battle. No, none of that.
No, I think it's really fitting though that like she's no one special. It's just just the pure randomness. But Matt picks someone who can do what he needs to do. But I wanted to read this section of it because to me it's really good writing.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is as he gets into the room and he, feels his way along the woman and, clamps his hand on her mouth. I want you to answer a question, he whispered. Blood and ashes, what if he had mistaken the room? What if this was not a windfinder at all, but one of the bloody Seanchan women? What would you do if I took that collar off your neck? Lifting his hand, he held his breath. I would free my sisters, if it pleases the light that should happen. The sea folk accents in the darkness made him breathe again. The light be willing, we would cross the harbor, somehow, to where our people are held, and free as many as we were able. The unseen woman's voice remained low, but grew fiercer by the word. The light be willing, we would take back our ships and fight our way to sea. Now, if this is a trick, punish me for it and be done, or kill me for it. I was on the brink of yielding, of giving up myself, and the shame of that will burn me forever. But you have reminded me who I am, and now I will never yield. Do you hear me? Never. And if I asked you to wait for 3 hours? Every time that she's like ready to be like, fuck you, dude. You're in here playing mind games. Just fucking kill me. And he's like, and if I asked you to wait 3 hours? I love it. I love the way Jordan just like, they are so, it's such a victorious moment. I love it.
Yeah, it's one of the conversations that I do remember, right? It's one of those things that you're like, there's something about the interaction between the two of them where she's desperate and he's letting her go. And you're just like, yes, finally, like a chance to strike back against the Seanchan. It's very satisfying. She jumps the gun a little bit.
In her eagerness, she warps time slightly. She counts 55 seconds for every minute or something.
I often wonder maybe if in the process of letting all her sisters go that like they get discovered or something and they have to jump a little early.
Right. Yeah, totally. Something like that. But it becomes, I believe, capital letters, the Great Escape in Sea Folk lore after this, which is very cool. It's a big deal. It's a blow to the Seanchan and a blow for the Sea Folk in a very real way.
Right, because they get back some of their most powerful channelers that they lost when the city was taken, and they were unprepared.
Their leadership, too. Not just their channelers,
right.
But their leadership.
That's right. I highlighted that whole paragraph, too.
It's a good paragraph. Yeah. It just punches in the gut every time.
We get a memory. He took passage on Athan Mier vessel from Aloran to Barashta. And that's basically from what is now modern day Saldea to what is modern day Ebou Dar.
Oh, coming full circle. That's cool. So
he remembers taking a passage to Ebou Dar, which I think is kind of funny. But yeah, that's basically all the way around the coast, around the Sea of Storms, right? Like, yeah,
I was just doing that in my head. Like, that's a pretty good continental circumnavigation. I don't know what the word is for it when it's just a continent, but you know what I mean.
And it's probably way faster than a coastal hugger. Also probably safer because they didn't have to hug close to the Sea of Storms. They probably went like way around and avoided the worst of whatever that coast is.
Right.
That no one lives on in the whole corner of the continent.
Yeah, they probably went out to sea, caught a big trade wind ocean current, soared around, and it was awesome. And now that memory is coming in handy, and it's really cool. She could ruin everything, but if he could not take a chance, then who could?
Right. And also, I'm just a gambler. That's his like consistent, I'm just a gambler. But, you know.
He's the man with luck.
As a general, he gambles with men's lives, you know, and battles, right? Lord of Battles is really what he is. He just calls that gambling.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And this is why the association with Odin is stronger than the association with Loki, despite the fact that he is a prankster.
You know, I mean, yes, but he's a bit of everything. As we learned from Origins, Jordan didn't like to take one aspect from one character. And it's, you know, something we've said and seen a million times over is like, it. You know, he's not just Odin. Rand isn't just Thor, right? There's a bunch of different pieces taken, and sometimes they share aspects of a similar, or they split up characteristics of one god. Yeah,
he played serious mix and match with all of it.
So he shows her how to open the collar, which is, you know, we see the girls open it with the one power, but they're really just using air in place of fingers.
Yes. Yeah, it's just a pinch and twist.
It's not like you don't need, a pinch and twist. You don't need any magic to do it.
And he makes her practice 3 times because if he's going to do this, he's going to do it right. And I appreciate his thoroughness.
It's always in the TV shows when they say, hey, okay, the password is, and then they say some long phrase and like, you got it. And the person's like, yeah. And I'm like, no, that's not how that works. You don't just say something once, no matter how simple it is, and be like, it's one of the reasons I love, what is it? Evil Dead? Not Evil Dead, but the third one, Army of Darkness. When they give him the magic phrase, you know, Blatu, Gatu, Flatu, or whatever it is. And he's like, yeah, I got it. And then he goes off and he goes to remember it. And he's like, opens up the book and goes to say the magic phrase and he gets it wrong. And that causes everything to go wrong in the movie. And it's entirely because he like just, oh yeah, no, I totally have the magic phrase. And there's so many things in fantasy where they're like, okay, the password is, and you know, movie magic, right? It's boring to watch a character practice a password, so we just move on. But I do like that Jordan spends the time to be like, no, practice. We're not moving on until you get this right, because I'm not having my rebellion stymied by someone who can't remember how to open a lock. Right. Your squirrely brain, your like adrenaline out, excited brain, like it's going to need a little repetition in order for this operation to work. So on his way out, he comes across Aeginin, and just basically running into a authority figure, a busybody, as best I can tell. Yeah, it's just one of the Suldamas up there being a little extra, a little above and beyond, and gets in the way. It's a random encounter. And he goes to what, like, basically snap her neck, or like, I'm not really sure what he's going to do. Grab her and tie her up. I think he was going to go for the, stuff her in the hayloft or in a closet or something like that. And then Aeginin does double duty with her language and tells him to go away while also telling the woman to go away. And he obliges because he's like, fine, not my circus, not my monkeys. You got this. It's cool. Dalinar, the dog in black, is saying Klaatu Branda Niktu was the phrase, and that's a reference to the day the earth stood still, which is the shutdown phrase from that. So, oh, I remember that. God, the day the earth stood still is such a weird movie. Klaatu, yeah, the shutdown sequence for melting down the whole world, as I recall. Yeah. Thank you for that. For some reason, I mean, just like the guy in Army of Darkness, I cannot remember that phrase. It's a cursed phrase. And I couldn't figure out who this Suldam was, and it doesn't matter, I don't think. It's someone who was invested in Teslin's training, but I think that's multiple. It gets mentioned that that's several of the Suldams, so there's nothing to single this one out. So in Encyclopedia Watt, it claims it is Essonande, Essonde, who's mentioned in Winter's Heart, Chapter 20. Oh. And she's wide and gray-haired. So. Okay.
Just one of the Suldam.
She is in charge of the Suldam and Damani in Ebou Dar. So that's why she's such a busybody. She's the one who's like in charge of the stables.
Okay, so she's the head Suldam here in Ebou Dar.
Right.
And so that's why she's up there going a little above and beyond and checking up after hours and all that, is because she's like in charge of all the everything. Okay.
I'm trying to see where she's mentioned in that chapter. Bethaman threatens to report Rena to Asanda for laziness. So that's back in chapter 20. So that's where we get the name from. And then the assumption is this is the person in charge.
Okay. That makes sense. Thank you for looking that up.
Yeah. Encyclopedia Watt, a great aid for referencing. Because unlike the wiki, I feel like the Watt is, just the facts man. They do have some speculation, but it's down in the notes and specifically marked as such. So they've done a really good job of indexing what's happening and who the characters are in the chapters. And I really appreciate that because the wiki has a lot more speculation in it and a lot more factual inconsistencies. Whereas this is very much just like a list of names and a list of like what happens to those people.
The wiki feels to me a lot more like the White Book or the Black Book.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like Encyclopedia Watt is like, this is what we do as fans for ourselves. Like, I mean, I know that the Watt Wiki is a fan-made thing, but it just feels more cast in the mold of the official canon supplements rather than like the true nerdy Mick Grittertron that we know we are.
So yeah, it's nice that they've done a lot of that work in terms of cross-referencing the characters and descriptions and stuff like that to really, really save us a lot of time and effort. Me, at least.
Yes. So he backs off and it's funny how he makes his way down the stairs very cautiously and then runs down the hallway and like makes a big shatter, like he shatters a vase. And I almost wonder if it's like he flexed his luck to like get down the stairs safely and then it had to like untension the other way.
Right. He had to do something like a little silly to get out of there.
Just a quick luck rebalance. He had to like lean on it and then it had to relax.
I always wanted that shattered vase to be referenced later, to be like, oh, my favorite vase was broken on that night or something like that, Like, I would have loved to have seen I didn't know what was happening until I heard a vase break. I didn't find anybody there, but, I knew then that something was going on. Or, something like with Kadir or Tuon, or maybe the vase is what attracted Tuon.
You know what? We'll roll with that.
We'll roll with that.
We'll just take that and we'll go with it.
Mm-hmm.
The vase breaking is how Tuon got alerted to where Mat was so she could follow him.
We'll ignore the fact that a solid 30 minutes goes by while he's tying up Tylan and saying his goodbyes to her.
Well, maybe it's like Selucia noticed and then she had to wake Tuon up and she had to like do her ablutions and then she had like a cramp and like, it's just headcanon at will. Right. So, then Mat, the next thing that happens is he walks into Tylan's apartments for the last time and encounters Tylan.
And he goes to get his Ashendare because that's where he's left it, right? And the Ashendare is not something he's going to leave behind, as it turns out, with good reason, because it's the key to escaping the Aelfinn and Aelfinn world. Yeah,
Moraine doesn't get out to save the world without the Ashendare. It's as important as his eyeball for that.
Yep. So we find out that the reason they're back is that an army has vanished from Mirandy, which of course is
Egwene in the White Tower.
Egwene in the White Tower using the gateways to transport directly to. So that's sort of the news that has finally reached here.
Yeah, which I hadn't really, I think, ever connected until I was doing my notes for this read today. I was always just like, an army vanished and whatever. I figured it was something. And then I was like, wait, vanished. Mirandy. That's the army moving. So Egwene, in so many ways, triggers the events that lead to Tylan getting her head ripped off. Awkward.
Yay, Egwene. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just fascinating little Two Rivers intersections of stuff. Like across the continent, the Two Rivers kids continue to bump into each other via proxy.
I kind of think of it, have you ever seen like the area that wolves will occupy and they'll like put GPS trackers on them and they show that like the packs don't overlap at all? Like they have very clear boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of think of that with like Taviran influences, where you have these like bubbles of influence that like press up against each other. And like these people who get caught in the middle because they're like bouncing between two Taviran influences.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like a rabbit living in between two wolf territories.
Oh, I like TC Traveler saying that Tuon doesn't walk around improperly dressed. She heard the vase and then had to get up and put on her whole outfit before because she's in her like tiara and everything.
Yeah, she's got to wear her $500,000 jewels around in her diaphanous multiple millions of pleats robe so that she can spy on Mat in the middle of the night because Empress shit.
Well, you don't want to be caught in your nightie spying on somebody, right?
I mean, unless you do.
Okay, Avienda. I'm just going to let him see me naked by accident. Oh, no, I have to flee to Seanchan. Sex igloo. Oh, so
subtle.
Never just got to the sex igloo. That's where she is in the series. Yeah, so we listened to that yesterday.
Yes.
So that was fun to listen to that with her for the first time.
Was she screaming?
Ooh. Oh, yeah,
totally. Excellent.
She was like, I know where this is going.
When did she call it? The second that the gateway opened?
I wasn't subtle about it. As from the spoilers thing, I'm not exactly. This isn't.
Wheel takes
where I'm, making sure that nothing is spoiled for her. She knows mostly what's happening before we get there.
Still, though, that's excellent. Sex igloo.
So it's nice to see her. Like she's kind of stalled out in the beginning of book 5, after the end of book 4. Funny enough, I don't think Shadow Rising was necessarily her favorite, but she's really loving Fires of Heaven. And so she's like blasting through that.
Odd choice, but I'll accept it.
I don't think she's a Perrin fan.
That's fair.
Yeah.
But if she's not a Perrin fan, she's going to get real bogged down later. Because that's some of the best Perrin stuff right there.
I know. That's why I didn't say much.
You're leaving some things for spoilers.
Yeah, totally.
So, Tylan,
she, the trouble with her pet fox is that sooner or later it remembers it's a fox. Which is to say, she knows Mat's fleeing.
Yeah, her ability to keep him captive has come to an end. He needs to be returned to the wild because that's where he's going.
I mean, I'm kind of happy that Tylan at least acknowledged that this isn't a long-term thing, right? She knows it's a temporary thing. I think that might have been one of the reasons why she was holding on so tightly, is because she knew, like, if she didn't, he would run away. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Whether you can talk about the ethicalness of that, that there was a certain amount of, like, forcing him to stay and understanding that eventually wouldn't work anymore.
Right. Yeah. She's like, I'm just going to joyride the fuck out of this opportunity without, pedal to the metal without consideration because it's temporary and I want to just enjoy it while it's here. Which was, not done with the most ethical considerations, but she never intended to marry him or have him as a permanent consort or anything like that. This was always going to be temporary.
And you could say that a lot of her efforts before were stopping his half-hearted attempts at escape, but once he makes a serious attempt at escape, saves up his money, gets everything ready, takes off, she doesn't try and stop him at that point.
Right, and she can see that he clearly was planning to be gone before she came back. Right. She's like, because this was your real escape. This was your not half-hearted attempt. This is the real one, and strange fortunes have brought me back, so that way I'm interrupting you, but, she's not going to stand in the way of this. She has no intention of it. She never would. She instantly knows where she stands on this.
And she sort of joins him in his plans and makes plans like, make sure you tie me up good, I want to make sure that I'm also not held accountable for you getting out. Because I know I can't stop you, and if we don't put me in this awkward situation, I will be held accountable by the Seanchan.
Right, yeah, she can see how all of this house of cards is going to fall apart immediately and promptly leaps right to the solution for how to get herself and him out of it. But it starts with the emotional abuse release thing and then moves into the political ramifications. It all happens very quickly.
Right. And of course, we know that this ends up turning out poorly for her because the golem shows up and finds her completely tied up. And so it's hard to read the scenes where she's like, the knots had to be tight so she could not escape however she struggled. And she did struggle against them once they tied, thrashing about hard enough that it seems she really was trying to get free. Maybe she was. So this idea that, like, yes, even if she wanted to, there's no way to escape these bonds. When the golem's coming for her, she is finished.
And it's really messed up, right? Because he like gags her and, puts her on a tether and then blows out the lamps and closes the door. And she just lays there for a while. And then she hears footsteps and is like, I wonder who this is. And then it's the golem. And it's just the implied body horror of it all is very masterfully done with very few brushstrokes. And
the fact that he thinks he's doing her a favor by tying her up.
And that she thinks that he's doing her a favor, that she thinks this is how she's going to be safe. She thinks that, it's her bedroom. She asked for this. She assumes that she's going to be rescued. And like there would have been a moment of horror realizing she's going to be assassinated instead. And who knows how long that moment lasts, but it's at least a moment because she's smart. She's going to have a moment of horror before the end comes, regardless of how fast it is.
All right. The question I don't want to ask, do you think the golem raped her?
Nah. The golem's
You think he's
not,
just a murderer?
Yeah, the golem's not like the Murdral that are actually based on like human animal stock. He's a fully magical construct that looks like a human. Right. And they feed off of blood. They don't feed off of pain and suffering and sadism. They just feed off of blood. So no, I don't think that there would have been much more than he probably like did some weird, like creepy, like face caressing and like neck caressing because like food and stuff. But I don't think that there would have been anything overtly sexual about that.
The way a cat plays with its food.
Yeah. Yeah.
In a lot of ways, I think of the golem as like a cat made into a magical construct. Like they're liquid. They can flow through anything. They're great hunters.
Absolutely liquid. I think you're right. And so, I think that he would have played with her as a cat plays with a mouse, but not as like Shaida Haran would play with a member of the Keratin clan, for example.
Right.
But I want to see if the laser pointer would distract the golem. Got the silver fox head medallion or you got the laser pointer.
Little baggies of catnip. See if that's distracting.
Or maybe fork root works as like a narcotic because of the way that it affects channeling.
That's a good point, right? Things that negate channeling do hurt the golem. I wonder if like fork root tea would like burn the golem.
That would probably just be like a mild narcotic. And he'd probably find it kind of addictive, at least pleasant of an evening.
It gets him real. It's like a mild poison, or just like alcohol and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. Just like alcohol or tobacco. Just like little fuzzing around the edges after a hard day of stalking channelers. And
drunk golem goes on a murderous rampage.
Nah, he just wants to sit at home and munch on bats or whatever and watch Ozzy Osbourne music.
Literally melt into the couch.
Yeah, totally. There's a picture in chat of cats in containers proving that they are in fact liquid.
They are in fact liquid, yes. Are you familiar with Deep Space Nine?
Oh, yeah.
Who was the shapeshifter who Odo would totally turn into liquid and sleep in he had a little bathtub or whatever that he would go to sleep in.
Yeah, his bucket.
I'm
going to my bucket.
Yeah. So I imagine the golem doing the same thing.
Yeah. Totally. I prefer Voyager over DS9, but it's by a fairly small margin. Like DS9 holds about the same spot in my childhood nostalgia as Voyager. So.
Well, yeah, because they're out at basically the same time.
Yeah.
I mean, I know DS9 was later, but there was significant overlap.
Yeah.
And I watched them both. And I think as an adult, I appreciate DS9 a lot more because of the politics and the analogies and stuff like that.
Yeah, I've rewatched them both as an adult, and Voyager is definitely the one that I am comfort rewatching. DS9 I find a little bit too saccharine and on the nose because of all the politics. I'm like, get your reality out of here. Take me back to Monster of the Week. Jesus.
Right, yeah.
But I do find a lot of the subtext very enlightening given that I'm rewatching it as an adult and I don't really remember I don't remember it very much from when I was a kid. I just remember the sounds, right? I just remember the soundscape of like the doors and the way that the wormhole goes and like the plot. Like I don't remember from when I was a kid at all. So it's been interesting rewatching it being like, that's the commentary they're making. This is aging disturbingly well. I mean, of course it is because it's Star Trek. Of course it's aging well, but like, oof. Yeah. But yeah, no, definitely the Golam and Odo could share some traits quite easily. I also love that Tylan says that she will absolutely let Tuon buy him, which like you took the words out of my mouth. I think we both said what we love, and I was going right there. Is just the like, oh, that's how I'll show my anger. Is I'll be like, no, I'll totally sell you. Like, I'll pretend I don't care about your human rights. Right, and it also like really this chapter is the handoff between the two women. Yes, right. Like this is when. He last time he's affectionate with Tuon before he officially marries. Sorry, last time he's affectionate with Tylan before he officially marries Tuon at the end of the chapter. Yeah, he has a whole like 10 minutes of freedom between women. Like he gets released by Tylan and then immediately Tuon sweeps in. And there's a lot of repeated sense of this allegorical handoff of him comparing the two. And it just keeps going and it's very I should really call this the proposal, right? Rather than the beginning of the marriage, right? This is when he proposes to marry her, which is basically saying and she could ignore that or just have him killed. But then she says yes, and they're officially married. Yeah, this is the beginning of the wedding. Right. And they don't finish the wedding until she completes the ceremony. So this is, it's the proposal / the beginning of the wedding, but like the wedding takes so many months that I think you're right. It's more like a proposal, even though by Seanchan traditions, the proposal would have happened already between the families because arranged marriages are weird. But you can also sort of think of a proposal as the beginning of a marriage. That's when he says, "Will you marry me?" Is that something that you're interested in? And it's like, now usually there's, in our culture, the answer right away is yes, but she's waiting for a few more signs. And portents. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. And then there's the whole like Tylan, him. You were talking about this in the last chapter where Tylan rejects Mat wanting to take her with him. That whole like, he's like, "Hey, maybe you should come with me," and she's like, "Absolutely not. What do you think this is? I am a queen. No." No, I don't want your wanderer life. Like, I'm not interested in. I'm here at my duty station. Yeah, exactly. She's like, I have a job. Yes, I've been like raping you for fun on the side, but like, I do actually take my job as a ruler seriously. Like, okay. Moving forward. Mat arrives at the meeting spot and nobody else is there. And he's like, this is bad because I was late. So it turns out every different member of the party had some reason to be delayed. So that way they could all arrive at the same time. Ta'Veren. Like we said, this is Ta'Veren heavy, right? And they needed to be delayed so Tuon could show up. Yes. Yeah, totally. Because she needed to get dressed and like make sure that her nails were in order before taking off on this mission. Now, we haven't heard anything about dice rattling in his head this whole chapter. We haven't heard them stopping. Like, there's been nothing about that, despite the heavy Tuon influence chapter. We have not heard really the dice rattling in his head since he woke back up. And he doesn't even mention how odd it is that there's no dice rattling for this event, or how comforted he is or not comforted he is. Did Jordan forget about the dice for a minute? It kind of feels like it. It kind of feels like it, yeah. It seems odd, but like, I guess you can't remember everything every time. It's like this whole section, because like this book is written in chunks, right? He does a chunk of one character and a chunk of another. This whole Mat chunk, it feels like maybe he forgot the dice. And like maybe just when he was writing this book, he didn't include the dice for Mat in his head. Have we had much mention of the dice this book at all? Well, I mean, this is really our only Mat chapter. Let me look up dice in the book. We've had some Mat just preceding this. Yeah, there's been some Mat. Yeah. But not, other than this chunk, there hasn't been a lot of Mat in the book. Okay, yeah. Oh, there was some way back there. Well, so chapter 16, In Need of a Bell Founder. He's got dice in his head. So yeah, it's just like this passage, this chapter, this piece of Matt's arc, just for some reason the dice didn't get added. Or maybe it's not fateful because it's all going to work out just fine. But it's weird that he doesn't comment on it.
Yeah, 17, dice are in his head. And then, pink ribbons, the dice stop. And when he meets Tuon. So the meeting of Tuon is the last time he's got dice in his head.
Yeah. And then they show up next. I don't even know when. The next time I can think of is when he gives her the horse, but it's got to be sooner than that.
It's definitely next book. It's not in this book.
Sure.
The circus is when we get the next dice. So I have to find where I was again because I lost it.
We are at Tuon entering scene right.
Right.
So you are intending to leave. I cannot allow that.
And then they fight. And what I love about this fight is that Tuon's hands are just as fast as Matt's.
They're flirting. She's been training. Mm-hmm. This is a flirt spar, and I love it so much.
And she's got in her head, he's going to take you away. So there's this idea in her head, and we see it at the end of the chapter, that he is going to kidnap her and take her away as a possibility. And so she's putting up a fight, but I don't think she thinks she's in danger.
Never once. She is in this entirely to see what the omens are pointing at. And she attacks him thinking, I got to stop him from leaving because that's what I think I need to do. And then she discovers he's just as good at her at fighting. Mm-hmm. And she doesn't have to hold back. She gets to keep upping her skill and he keeps matching her because for once she's found someone who's as fast and quick and smart at this as her. And like, this is the beginning of their relationship in so many real ways. This is like, they're flirting.
I also love the way she fights because she comes at him in a concentrated fury as though she were the taller and stronger and expected to overwhelm him. Like such a Tuon move, right? She's always going to go for the overpowering, bigger, stronger. Like that's what she does in all of her negotiations. She just takes the position of the stronger partner in the deal.
Yeah, she just assumes that she's the force of nature and you are the puny human cowering before.
Exactly.
She just takes that as granted.
Right. Done and done.
Yeah. And Matt's like, he keeps up, but barely, which makes him respect her in a way that he doesn't normally respect women. Normally he's afraid of like hurting them or overpowering them and assumes that he can. And then this woman, like, he needs Noal's help to deal with her.
And then he's burn him. You think about how pretty a woman was at a time like this was as bad as trying to price her gems.
You think she's cute.
Yeah, that's like that whole, all of a sudden his whole like she's boyish and not and slim goes to damn, she's hot. She's fucking kicking my ass.
Yeah. He admires competence in a woman.
He does. And that's one of the things I really like about Matt. He doesn't, even though he flirts with all these girls, the one he truly is in love with is the one who's competent and accomplished and, tough.
Yeah.
He's not looking for a simp.
Yeah, Matt seems to have a pretty decent grasp of the fact that there are several different kinds of love in the world. He really has, like, I forget all 5 or whatever the kinds there are, but he seems to really have genuine relationships on all the different levels.
Yeah, friendship, affection, love. Although I'm not sure how much love is with Tuon so much as it is admiration. That
Yeah, agape, platonic, romantic, fraternal, and the other one. That does seem correct. Yeah.
Yes, the other one.
The other one. And there's not really much of the respect for the holy in this world, but like he has serious platonic relationships and romantic and fraternal relationships that are all really cool. And like Tuon definitely transitions from, oh, well, she's not pretty enough to have romantic interest in to she's talented enough that I have this like at least platonic, but edging into romantic, like respect. Kind of like how he talks about Talmanas as being, and Birgitta, right? As being similar friendships. Like he ends up with some of that respect for Tuon, but he also actually thinks she's hot in a way that he doesn't with Talmanas or Birgitta for different reasons.
Right.
Oh, Matt, why are you so interesting and so annoying at the same time? such an enigma.
So again, Ta'Viren sends him down onto his knees just as Noal grabs Tuon, and that raises her kick up and over his head. So if he'd done anything but fall to his knees, he would have gotten kicked in the face.
The choreography of that moment is beautiful.
Yeah, but definitely that's got to be Ta'Viren at play.
Oh,
to have
yeah,
him fall at just the right time, just so he doesn't get hurt, and also Tuon doesn't get hurt.
Yeah, and Noal, just because he's, Noal, Jane Farstrider, hero of the Horn style person, he just happens to be able to swoop in and give Mat the edge he needs by grabbing Tuon, like bear hug style, from behind and physically lifting her off the ground so she can't kick.
Right. But he's also like, takes some experience. This is clearly a trained fighter who's trained to escape from a grip. And Noel's like, no, I got it. No problem. There's a certain amount of like, Noel's a bit of a badass here. And the fact that he can just grab this person who was giving Mat a hard time and be like, nope, totally immobilized. She's not getting away because I know how to hold a person immobile speaks a lot to his skills and his skill set and his experience.
Yeah, it's like you had Mat and Tuon one-upping each other, and then Noal comes in and shows them both up, and it's like,
right?
But who is this OP guy that just showed up this book? What is happening?
One little detail that I really liked, when Mat goes to tie her up, he unties his neck scarf.
Yes!
And it's one of the only times we ever see him take off that scarf is to tie up Tuon. And I feel like there's some symbology, whatever, with his taking that off and actually showing that scar and her seeing it for the first time, right?
Yes, I absolutely also wrote allegory in my book, because it's like the scarf covers up the scar and he's exposing himself to her. Also, the scarf is kind of like a leashy thing, and he's taking it from him and like applying it onto her. So now there's like a tie between them in this way. And
also, like, when he was in bed with Tylan, the only thing he was wearing was the scarf many times. He would keep it on. He would keep it on with her. And now it's the only thing he took off with Tuon. Yeah. It's such a good little, like you said, the transition from Tylan to Tuon. So good in this chapter. Yeah, really good writing, really good allegory, really good symbolism in terms of the things he's using to tie her up with.
Yeah, I mean, he even thinks about how it's good he had practice earlier with Tylan for helping tie her up. And I'm just like, practice with Tylan for your wife. You had a practice wife before you got your real wife. Like
that's exactly what Tylan was. Yeah, it was his like practice wife that he didn't want to have, and I do honestly think that that's why the pattern or Jordan or whatever put Tylan in his life, is to prepare him for Tuon and to get him less sort of as a player and settled down a little bit more as a husband material.
Yeah,
and like sort of realize that there are good things about that as well, even when you don't necessarily pick that relationship. Right.
Like, whatever you think about that choice, it is very clear that it's super, super intentional because of how this section is being written. Like, there's no ambiguity that that's what Jordan wants you to be getting out of this, I think. Whether or not you like it is your mileage may vary, but it's what it is.
Right. Mat regrets not warning Noal. It's like, yeah, this guy tied himself to you, and you're not gonna. It's like, yeah, good job, Mat.
Yeah, like good thing Noal thinks on his feet well.
Right. Good thing he's just like a hyper competent super soldier or whatever he is, superhero.
Yeah, for sure. I know. It's like, Mat, how could you have not thought of that? You thought of so many other things, but yeah, whatever. Noal can take care of himself. So.
There was a whole thing with the circlet when it like fell off her head, and then I thought, oh, someone's going to discover it, but then he puts it back on her head. So, never mind, I guess.
It shows that he's not trying to uncrown her. It shows respect for her person. Yeah, exactly. He's like, no, I'm screwing with you to the extent that I need to protect myself. I have no interest in messing with you for your own sake.
So after she's subdued, in comes Julian with Amathera, the former panarch of
Terabon.
Remember all the way back when Nynaeve rescued her from the hands of the Black Aja and
Nynaeve and
snuck him out. Nynaeve and Elaine.
Yeah, all that good stuff. Yeah. And
singing body songs, learning them in your dreams.
Yeah, and she had to be reconvinced to run away. That's why Julian is late, is because Thera's nerve completely failed and he had to start at square one convincing her to leave again.
Because again, this is the second time with the Seanchan that she's really been kidnapped, abused, put down, put in a position of slavery.
Yeah, she does not want to be punished for running away. That is a very, very serious concern for her. So then Aegyanan comes striding up, scares the group because footsteps, and then it's just her, so it's fine.
Right. Yeah. There's a whole long thing where they hear the footsteps coming and everyone like cowers in the corners and like gets ready to jump out, and it's just Aegyanan walking in. Kind of reminds me of when the girls are practicing channeling in the White Tower and the door opens and it's just Min or whatever. And they're like, Min, knock, jeez.
It just puts you in that headspace of being on edge and being tense and all that. It's that horror movie bit where, the door slowly creaks open and it's just somebody you know. Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, geez, we didn't need all that tension, but like you do. It's part of the artistic process.
Right.
And when Aegyanan arrives, Mat's world changes. Because she is the one who says it is death by slow torture to lay hands on the daughter of the 9 motherfucking moons.
And that's when we find out that's when Mat finds out that Tuon is the daughter of the 9 moons. And in his astonishment, he says what the Finn told him, which is, she is my wife. Not, I'm going to marry her. Not, oh my God, I can't believe I'm going to marry. Oh, I got this prophecy that I married the daughter of my 9 moons. He just blurts out, she's my wife.
Yeah.
And Aegyanan's like, you cannot say that, because she knows that's the beginning of the wedding ceremony.
Right. She's like, absolutely the last thing you're supposed to say right now.
And of course, Mat in his obstination says, she is my wife. Your bloody daughter of the 9 moons is my wife, which gives him the other 2 versions of it, which is him just insisting absolutely that that's what's happening.
And Tuon stares, but her expression is unreadable because she's going, so he is my husband.
So what I think, she already knew that, right? Or, I mean, she's waiting for all the signs, but she knows he's the candidate. I think what she's saying is, oh, he's had some sort of prophecy. He knows something. I think that's what she's realizing is like, oh, he knows that I'm going to be his wife. That changes things.
You're right, because the way she smiles at the end is because he will marry you and carry you away.
Right.
So you're right. I was kind of wondering why why they were reiterating it, but you're right. This is her realizing that she is not the only one with foreknowledge of the situation. And again, toy versus lion. Mm-hmm. This is one of her hints. Like, he's not what he appears right now.
How did he find out? How did he know that this was that I got a prophecy from an Aes Sedai because I'm the Empress? How is this boy toy aware of the prophecy that I received only recently from one of my prized demonic?
Yeah, there's no way he could have known that prophecy happened out at sea. Like,
right.
But clearly he's got knowledge from somewhere somehow. Yeah.
And so, yeah, that I feel like that says a lot about her understanding of their relationship, is when she understands, hey, I've got a prophecy, but so does he.
Yeah, you are not actually necessarily the demigod in this relationship, or at least not the only demigod in this relationship. And so then Selucia comes rocketing out to insert herself into the situation, mainly to protest at Tuon that they should not be doing this. It's really hilarious how Tuon and Selucia are like, we're in control of the situation, and it's simply a matter of choosing what to do. And Selucia's like strongly disagreeing with what Tuon wants to do while ignoring everybody else, basically.
And this is, of course, because they've had a conversation, right? Tuon probably said, listen, this prophecy says he's going to capture me and take me away. So when he does, we are going to go along with it to see what happens. And Selucia's like, fuck that. No. And Tuon's like, no, you will obey. We are doing this. And so Selucia comes in and is like, stop. It's not too late. We can totally beat them up and get out of here. Like, we have that ability, which I think is just hilarious that her just casual, like, the entire time that Mat thinks Selucia is just like a plump maid. And meanwhile, she's in here being like, 007 Bond. She could kick his ass and everybody, and she's convinced she could take out Noal and everybody else, Julian, all these fighters, no problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, she's like darts in all frantic, her eyes darting everywhere because she's assessing the situation and putting everyone off guard. And yeah, like, I mean, James Bond has nothing on Selucia. She's so badass. Like, Yeah. I also love Matt's casual massaging. Be like, oh, wow, Selucia was so hysterical. And then she gets so calm. It's weird how that comes and goes in women. Like, just never bothers to think that maybe there's something other than the hormones going on there. Which obviously what happens is Tuon gives her an imperative hand signal. And Selucia's like, all right, fine, I give up.
Yeah, you do have to wonder who would win if Selucia and Jane Farstrider went at it. Noal.
Ooh, that... They end up having a pretty interesting connection later, as I recall. She, like, helps patch him up after one of the fights or something. And they have a really interesting mutual respect conversation because they're both basically warder-type people. I think that they might end up in a both dead situation.
I mean, Noel's only, partially dead. Oh, you mean if they're fighting each other?
Yeah, I think if they went in a matchup against each other, I think neither of them would walk away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. That's tough. Again, and maybe Noel in his prime would be a better match for her than he is right now, because he's a little beat up.
Yeah, but Noel in his prime wouldn't know as much as old Noel.
True.
So.
True.
I don't know. I would be interested to see that cage fight.
To be honest, I kind of ship the two of them. I'm like, damn, that would be kind of an interesting, relationship.
Yeah, the age mismatch is a bit much, but yeah, they...
Well, Selucia's what, 40?
Yeah, I suppose. And yeah, Noel's probably only in his 70s, right?
Oh, gosh.
He's really old.
I always forget that he's supposed to be that old, yeah.
Yeah, he acts like Tom, who's not that old, but...
Right. I always think of him as he's in his 50s.
Yeah, I don't think so. But definitely Selucia and Noal do have some friendly moments.
Date of birth, 9/25. So yeah, 75 years old.
Yeah, so I don't know if Selucia would be interested in him in that way, but they do have mutual respect, which is cool.
Whereas, yeah, Tom's more in his 50s, right? He just sort of is white-haired and limps because of the limp makes him appear a little older because he's got that injury.
Yeah, Tom, I think, was an old man the day he was born.
Right. He's always a grumpy old man.
Yeah, exactly. And he quickly aged into that vibe. And he'll then, do a Patrick Stewart and just stay the exact same appearance for 50 straight years and just never age.
At one point, Morghese muses that Tom was twice her age during the relationship when Morghese was 27, which would make Tom 54 to 56 at the time, and therefore about 70 at the start of the series.
Huh.
But at another point, he's described as being in his prime, suggesting a younger age.
Well, Morghese is known for exaggerating people's age gaps for her own ego.
And let's see. Robert Jordan's notes on Andor attempt to be more precise, saying Tom is about 20 years older than Morghese. This would make him in his late 40s during his relationship and about 60 or 61 when the series began.
Okay. So.
That feels more like late 50s, early 60s.
Yeah.
With a very spry sort of ability.
Well, if you keep yourself moving, then the arthritis has a harder time getting in.
That's why I don't move anymore. I welcome the arthritis. Join me.
Seems
together we can. No, I'm just kidding.
Backwards, but okay. You do you. Anything else to talk about in the chapter? All I have left is just pointing out that Tuon smiles when he says that they're taking them, because obviously it concludes the marry you and carry you away.
Right. It's just one of the signs of the prophecies, right? Because there's we talked about that quite a bit in the last one, but there's really 3 or 4 different conditions he needs to meet, right?
Yeah.
The fox that chases the ravens, marry you and carry you away.
Remembers Hawkwing's face.
And then releases you.
Yeah, and the Band of the Red Hand. So.
Right. Okay, so it's 5 things, yeah.
But this is the first of those loops being fully closed. This is the first time that a complete bit of that prophecy has happened, and they both think that the other one's cute, and now they're running away together, and it's going to be a whole thing. And I think we're ready for you to read us out.
I suppose you mean to leave them both in the hayloft, Noal said. No, Mat replied, looking at Tuon. She stared right back, still with no expression he could read. A boy slim little woman when he liked women with flesh on their bones. Heir to the Seanchan throne when noble women gave him goosebumps. A woman who had wanted to buy him and now likely wanted to put a knife in his ribs. And she would be his wife. The Aelfinn always gave true answers. We are taking them with us, he said. At last, Tuon showed expression. She smiled, as if suddenly she knew a secret. She smiled, and he shivered. Oh, light, how he shivered. I think that's actual terror.
No, I agree.
I'll be honest.
I do agree. That is not a shiver of anticipation. That's a shiver of what in the prophecy tomfoolery is happening.
It's a shiver of anticipation.
But yeah, I mean, the eel, that was one of those answers he didn't want. And he's been kind of dreading when it's going to happen. Every relationship he's had, he's been waiting for this, and now it's happening.
Yeah, the number of times when he's been like, have you heard of the daughter of the Nine Moons? And everyone's like, no, what the hell is that? And now, yeah.
And now here she is.
It's funny that he never asked a single Seanchan who the daughter of the Nine Moon was.
Why would he? He's not romantically involved with any of them, and those are the only people he asks.
That's fair enough, yeah.
Like, why would he think that it's one of their... I mean, I guess it's silly that he didn't ever notice anyone mention the Court of the Nine Moons. I think it does get mentioned occasionally, so you'd think he would have picked up on that, but I guess not.
There's one or two times, yeah. The Emperor, I think isn't it the Empress of the Nine Moons?
I don't think so. It's the Court of the Nine Moons and the Daughter of the Nine Moons, but I think the Empress is just the Empress.
The Empress,
but I'm not sure, now that I think about it.
And that's in Sandar, in Seanchan. Mm-hmm. Right, the Court of the Nine Moons is in Sandar, Shandar, however you want to pronounce it.
It's Shandar in the audiobook, but whatever. Yeah, that's the actual physical, like the Court of the Sun King or whatever. Buckingham Palace. Court of the Nine Moons.
Aging sucks. And it does at that age, right?
I do remember reading a couple years ago that based on current, projected advancements in health and knowledge about how health works and old people health in particular, that the first person who will live to be 120 has already been born. Mm-hmm. Which is sort of a trip to think about.
Yeah, I'm right here.
My great grandfather made it just a few months into being 100 before he died. So I've got some longevity on multiple branches of the family. Just even despite health issues, it's just like, but they just kept my great grandmother. She had 8 different cancers, and she still managed to plow ahead to 98. Just 40 years with various cancers. Just fuck you, I'm gonna keep going. So. Yeah.
Yeah.
I try to just have...
Alcoholism is taken out more of my grandparents really than anything else.
Yeah.
So that's if I can avoid drinking too much, that's one of the reasons I like to smoke weed, is because it does help me avoid the booze. And booze has killed most of my family. Yeah.
Brandon and I have barely drunk any this January, just a couple of times. And it's been feeling very good. But yes, the weed consumption does go up because reasons. Oh, bye, Zarth. Yeah, I try to have also just really reasonable expectations of, some exercise is better than none exercise. I don't have to be working towards being triathlon perfect shape as long as I'm doing something.
Something.
Most days. It doesn't have to be every day. Right. It doesn't have to be a lot. Just something. Something most days. And the more you do it, the easier it gets to be like, well, I'm in the mood for that. I'm feeling my back. I'm feeling my hips. Like, I need to go do this. It's a process, a lifelong process.
It is. It's one of those things that, and I've always had good luck when I can incorporate exercise into my day. Either I make my commute to work like a biking, or like now I work both when I was in the kitchen and now I work a very physical job, and that helps me not be lethargic.
Oh my God. When I was in college, I would walk to class and then I had a library job walking around putting away books. I was getting my steps in and my cardio was good and I could work my upper body. And living out here in the country, I have to make land care and yard work and gardening work for me. And it's so easy to just put those off, because there's no commute. I used to have to walk 1.5 miles just to get to and from campus in the apartment. It was great. I loved it so much. And it's just country living.
No, it's so contradictory that country living is often less healthy than city living because you have to drive everywhere. And in the city, you can actually walk places. And
well, it's not that it's less healthy if you work your land.
Right. But averages. People who live in the country tend to be in worse shape than people who live in cities. Absolutely, 100%.
Because I would say, having lived in the country and the city, that's not what I've observed. Is that a science thing?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, 100%.
Never heard that, and certainly haven't seen it.
No, well, I guess in terms of, and of course, BMI is a terrible way to measure things, but I think in terms of BMI, you have a much lower average BMI in the country than you do in the city.
I'd be very curious to know if that's true out here in Westland County, because that doesn't match what I'm mentally filing through. But I can see the logic. I want to know if that's true in my area. I can find some studies and references. Don't just believe me, but I'm fairly certain that I've read good studies on that. Well, interesting.
Because again, just a lot of people just don't work the land, or they
do it with heavy equipment because it's big
equipment. Yeah, right. You're sitting in a tractor all day.
Yeah, farmsteading isn't how most people live in the country.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah, you're living a very non-typical existence out there. You're trying to, yeah.
I'm trying. Yeah, I'm trying to go for that cottagecore life, but funky.
All right. Well, I think we've ground to a halt on that one.
Yeah, probably. Thanks everyone for joining us.
Yeah, really appreciate it. That's always a fun chapter. I love that one. Yeah. And next week, don't we hang out with Rand or something like that? So, and we're doing a double header next week, two Rand chapters.
God, what's happening to my camera?
I love it. It's really funny. It's like we're seeing the we're seeing the extra data between the frames popping in. It's because you can see my video is popping into yours, but I'm moving as you're not. You're stuck between a couple of frames. My video's live. It's so weird.
I promise I'm not on drugs. It's just the camera.
I worried that I'm on drugs.
Seriously. Oh no, it's ruined again.
It's doing it again.
That's really creepy to look at. I'm not
It is really creepy to look at. Well, do you ever see, oh gosh, it was something Max. It was an old 80s, freaking Max Headroom.
No.
Yeah, Max Headroom, there's a whole, I don't even know how to describe Max Headroom. Max Headroom was a bit of a propaganda parody on corporations, and it used a lot of that sort of glitching video purposely. Because he was supposed to be, he was a real person in makeup, but they acted like he was a computer-generated image, and he fooled a lot of people into thinking he was computer-generated.
Oh, wow.
But then he was also criticizing big brands as a parody thing, but people thought he was like supporting the big brands in the way that like some people don't get parody. Yeah. And so like there's a whole ethos around him, and like no one is sure who was creating him for a while. Yeah, Max Headroom. If you're interested in some like deep 80s weird lore, look up Max Headroom and what he represents. A lot of fun.
All right, then.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or
support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?